Writers, today we learn how to tell our stories bit by bit. Just like pilots, writers always start by looking at their checklist to see what small moments are supposed to look like, what small moment writers are supposed to do. Now, I notice that our checklist says I put my pages in order. I use words like and, then, and so. It also says I wrote my story across 3 or more pages. Now, I was thinking about these two because I was reading a work by a first grade friend of mine named Max. Let's look at the work that Max did. I went to the apple orchard, but a wasp flew on my apple. It flew away, and I was happy. Now, writers, Max and I were reading his work, and we were looking at our checklist, and we were thinking, this story has some good potential. It's interesting that he had his apple and the wasp flew on it, but he tells it all in one big blur. Look, it's not even one page, and our checklist said it had to be across 3 or more pages. Max also didn't use any language like then, and, or so. He just tells the story really fast in one big blur. So Max and I worked together, and he created a new story. This is what Max's revised story looked like. I went to the apple orchard, and I picked an apple. It looked tasty. I took a bite, and I loved it. It was so tasty that I picked another one. Yummy. But when I picked another one, I said, I hear a wasp. I took a step, and I was nervous. There might be a wasp. Apple tree. Ah! Wasp! I was so scared. I threw the apple. Me, wasp, apple tree. Then I said, it flew away. I was so happy that I went back and I lived happily ever after. Me, wasp. So small moment writers, when Max went back to the checklist where he had put not yet for using and, then, and so, he was able to write yes. Because in his writing, he did use words like and, then, and so to tell his story little bit by little bit. Instead of telling in one big blur, he wrote his story across 3 or more pages. Here was Max's first draft, and here was his revised story. This story is much more fun to read because instead of telling it in one big blur really quickly in only 2 sentences, Max took a step by step. He said what happened first, and next, and then, and finally at the end. He did things like bringing characters to life and doing all of the other things that great writers, great small moment writers do, according to our checklist. So writers, when you are drafting or revising today, make sure that you tell your story bit by bit, not in one big blur. Make sure you use words like and, then, and so to show how things happen first, in the middle, and then at the end. And make sure to write across 3 or more pages. Happy writing! The writing workshop has begun.